You're listening to This Week in South Baltimore, brought to you by SouthBmore.com. Welcome back, friends and neighbors around Sobo. You're listening to another episode of This Week in South Baltimore. This is episode 3. We've been away for a couple of weeks now, but we're going to bring you one of these episodes every couple of weeks, catch you up. There's a lot that's been going on around the neighborhood and around the city in general. As always, of course, it's myself, Nate Harper, joined with Kevin Lynch. What's up, Kev?
Hey, what's going on, Nate? Good to talk to you.
You too, man. Good to hear you again. Can't wait to hear our rundown this week of what's going on around South Baltimore. Again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Kev, so I know there's got to be some openings and closings going on around the business community.
Sure, yeah. It's kind of a busy week when it comes to openings and closings. We did have 2 closings that were announced at McHenry Row and Locust Point. The Urban Oyster, which was a fast casual seafood restaurant that also has a bar. They announced their closing. That business is owned by Jasmine Norton, who was the chef and owner of that business. And unfortunately for them, this was a business whose foundation was in farmers markets and events. So really a huge part of their business was unable to continue during this pandemic, as farmers markets have moved towards a kind of grocery model only. Obviously, there's no events going on. So really it became all about the brick and mortar for Urban Oyster. And obviously it's been a challenging time for all restaurants. So unfortunately, the Urban Oyster announced that they will be closing at McHenry Row, but they did tease that they want to get another location and keep their business going. So we'll keep an eye out for what the Urban Oyster is up to next. So a shame that McHenry Row loses a good seafood business, but we'll see what happens in that spot next. Interesting enough, that retail space was a Asian concept about 3 or 4 times over until a couple years ago, when it was subdivided down into 3 smaller spaces, the Urban Oyster being one of those, Clean Juice, a juice shop that's still there, that was one, and Passport Health. So now they knocked it down to smaller, 1,000 to 2,000 square foot spaces, as opposed to that big, close to 5,000 to 6,000 square foot Asian restaurant that was in there before. So we'll see what the team at 28 Walker, which owns and manages McHenry Row, might have in store next for that space. But it's certainly available at the moment. And another closure at McHenry Row is World of Beer, which has that large corner retail space that has the outdoor dining. They have the big bar. They obviously sold a lot of beer at World of Beer. They did some really cool block parties. So unfortunately, World of Beer is closing. Just working on getting more information about that. But one of their regional managers basically said, due to the current economic times, this was tough to keep World of Beer going. So unfortunately, World of Beer is closing. That's a big, interesting space. I talked to the team from 28 Walker. They said they're working with Ryan Wilner of KLNB to get this space leased. They said they've engaged with a few concepts, but they don't have a deal yet. So interesting enough, as you look at McHenry Row, it's been around for about 8 years or so, and they really have not had prolonged vacancies at any point during the history of this shopping center and mixed-use development. So we'll see how quickly they can get these spaces filled. Most times when something has closed, there's been something right behind it to take its place. So certainly some vacant spaces, but maybe an interesting opportunity. Maybe with a space like World of Beer, could it be a space that maybe gets some kind of destination higher end retail, or does it stay kind of a sports bar, beer bar? So will certainly be interesting to see what direction 28 Walker goes with that. But it's certainly a challenge for them, as they have 2, and I'm hearing maybe a 3rd vacant retail space in that strip of retail. So we'll see how they handle this challenge. But 28 Walker, one of the premier leasing teams of retail in the city. They have the shops at Canton Crossing, one of the bigger shopping centers in the city. They have Wheelhouse in Federal Hill. They have McHenry Row. So they have a lot of projects going on. They have a big townhome project that they're getting started in Locust Point. So they've got a lot going on, and I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Yeah, and those are 2 great spots that I can't imagine are going to be vacant for very long. And especially World of Beer right there on the very end. And it's just a great destination with all the parking that's available. So those folks want to come in from, out in the county or around the city. You're right by the highway. It's just a great spot to be. So hopefully they won't stay vacant long.
Yeah, hopefully not. Yeah, you got some I-95 signage there. Certainly an easy place to get to. You have the hotel there now. And McHenry Row, I guess, kind of when the hotel opened was right when this pandemic kind of got to be more of an issue. So unfortunately, I don't think any of the retail at McHenry Row has really gotten a good windfall from that hotel yet, but certainly that'll be a big asset in the future as things hopefully get back to normal sooner than later. But yeah, certainly, with those retail spaces, you can have the advantage of being around a lot of offices, being around a hotel, being in a great neighborhood, and certainly having that access to 95 and other parts of the city. So we'll see where they go from here. Then moving along to Cross Street Market, they added a tenant, Bullhead Pit Beef. This is obviously Baltimore loves its pit beef, our signature style of grilling and barbecue. So Bullhead Pit Beef opened their stall at Cross Street Market. They had been a food truck business, which had partnered with breweries and different events. So now they have their first brick and mortar of their own at Cross Street Market. I walked through there yesterday. They're selling pit beef and pit turkey and pulled chicken and pulled pork. So I know the team at Cross Street Market is super excited to get such a Baltimore staple in there in the market. And, I assume getting ahead of ourselves here, but another bit of news we're going to talk about is the closure of dining rooms in Baltimore again. So they're going to have to become a carry-out business here in their early months, but certainly a big get for Cross Street Market as far as getting one of those signature Baltimore dishes in the market. One of the very interesting and very surprising stories that's happened during this pandemic for Federal Hills. There's actually been a lot of new retail leases, and especially on Charles Street. The 1,000 and 1,100 block of Charles Street have really struggled with vacancies in recent years. So we've announced some of these businesses, but we're going to have several new announcements here in the next few weeks with a couple new retail spots that are coming to Charles Street. And I was walking around yesterday, and my senses got alerted as I noticed a couple other for lease signs are gone and some other construction and storefronts going on. So as of right now, it looks like 10 new businesses will be added to South Charles Street in the Federal Hill Main Street district, 7 of which were announced since the pandemic began. And then I have those 2 other spaces I have my eye on. So really unbelievable. We could add about 12 businesses to Charles Street, which was a street that was kind of struggling right before this pandemic. Another issue that was going on there was about 1.5 to 2 years of gas line work going on the street. So if I'm looking to lease a business and there's trucks in front of my business during business hours, that'd probably be something that would make me think twice. So now the street's been repaved and they're leasing up a lot of space on Charles Street. So that's outstanding to see, especially in an economic time like we have going on right now.
Oh, that's awesome. And thanks for sharing that. I mean, you got me really curious now, but you walk down Charles, you drive down Charles, you see a lot more vacancies, it seems like, than say Light Street. So yeah, man, you're throwing that out there and I'm like, ooh, what's coming? I'm curious. And hey, one of the things that we talked about on our Sobo Spotlight podcast is the new outdoor dining in Fed Hill. Now, a couple of weeks have gone by, just like what Kathy was talking about, Kathy Rosenbaum, who was our guest from Fed Hill Main Street. One of the things I thought was awesome is how she talked about every restaurant's going to decorate it in their own way. And it looks awesome. It just looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you want to kind of chat about that, about some changes there and what's going on with the new outdoor dining.
Yeah, sure. Definitely make sure to listen to our Sobo Spotlight podcast with Kathy. She did an awesome job kind of explaining the current realities in Federal Hill and how their big expansion of outdoor seating, they have their the north side of the unit block at East Cross Street adjacent to Cross Street Market. That's now pedestrian only. So you have parklet dining spaces in there. A parklet is where a parking spot is replaced by kind of an outdoor patio for a restaurant. So you have the parklet dining spaces on that side of Cross Street. You also have them on the south side of the unit block of Cross Street, which still has car traffic, but got some parklet spaces there. Then you have the parklets on the 1,000 and 1,100 block of Charles and Light Street. So I think actually just the 1,000 block of Light Street. So yeah, it's really Federal Hill really looks a lot different right now. We have this, just the outdoor dining spilling out into the streets. And as you were saying, they'll all have the chance to decorate these spaces, make them their own. I've seen some nice planters out there. They're currently working on getting string lighting and some shade sails. I saw a place like Soba Cafe really did a great job designing their outdoor space. So yeah, certainly. And it certainly comes at great timing as getting ahead of our next topic, as Baltimore City is shutting down indoor dining again, starting today at 5 o'clock, Friday at 5 o'clock. So So yeah, it's good timing to have all this additional outdoor dining. And as Kathy was saying, it's a good kind of experiment to see, will this work for Federal Hill long term?
Especially with summer here, and then you got fall coming up. In terms of some of that nicer weather coming in. Hopefully this goes into keeps people out in the community and checking out all of our awesome restaurants. Into the fall, and then I know even when it gets to winter, let's be honest. People live in Sweden, Norway, Finland, right? And people still go out in negative 10-degree weather. So I think we'll be okay in Baltimore, even in the wintertime. If we need to be outside eating, we'll still do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Certainly you can get the portable heaters, and obviously at least early winter there's always a lot of events that kind of keep people outdoors. When you have the holidays, you have the Christmas lights, you have Halloween and different events, different Thanksgiving type events. So certainly at least the early part of the winter people are used to kind of getting out and about. So yeah, hopefully it's a good end of the summer and good fall for all those restaurants. Fall is usually the perfect time to be outdoors and enjoying things outside in South Baltimore. So hopefully it's a successful run with this outdoor seating. Hopefully a good trial run to see if this is something that could be a permanent reality in Federal Hill. And certainly just looking at it, it's certainly great for vibrancy when you're walking down the street and you just see the restaurant spilling out into the street. You see the vibrancy. It looks like a neighborhood that's really alive. So hopefully it's a good, Kathy called this an opportunity. So this is certainly an opportunity to test something out and see how it
Right,
works.
test it on. I didn't mean to bring up wintertime, even though I'm just being forward thinking. But when it's 1,000 degrees outside right now, kind of
Right.
like, ooh, it feels like air conditioning is just a few months away. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. I always tell
um,
people who are thinking about moving to Baltimore or new to Baltimore, I'm like, we get the extremes of weather. So
yeah,
certainly a day like today, you can walk outside and sweat through your shirt pretty quick. And then we have the days where
yeah,
you keep a drip going in your sink to make sure your pipes don't freeze.
right,
So
right.
it's definitely a little crazy to think about winter right now, but things can change pretty quickly.
Absolutely. And speaking of maybe spending a little more time indoors at some point, well, those of us with kids, we're definitely going to be, have them in our households a little bit longer here because we got some changes with the COVID-19 rules and everything going on. So, Kev, I know you want to definitely speak to some of that's happening.
Yeah, so Baltimore City Public Schools made their announcement on how they're going to move forward with this fall semester coming up. And as of now, they're going to start with virtual learning, a continuation of how the school year ended last year. So, essentially, it's really going to, I'm sure the curriculum's going to depend on the grade your child's in, but, certainly there'll be homeschooling, work to do at home, some classes on Zoom. So yes, talk about obviously so many aspects to look at with a decision like this. How do you open the schools? How do you do things? But certainly, the parents of local kids are certainly, their lives can be a lot different. Where you either have to get a babysitter or find the time to homeschool your kid. There's a lot of you know I'd say probably most families around here have two working parents, so certainly throwing a lot of lives into a little bit of chaos. One interesting thing is the Catholic schools have announced they very likely will be opening they basically said they're doing everything they can to have kids back in the classroom. Also, some of the private pre-K options in South Baltimore look like they will be open also. So should be an interesting shuffle. What do parents do? Do you take some time off of work or at least a few hours a day to work on this virtual learning? Do you bring in a nanny? Do you move your kids to private school? And one thing I think will be interesting is looking at what counties do have classroom learning and which don't. Is there any shuffling around? There's probably a lot of families that have a second home, maybe at the beach somewhere, maybe Maryland or Delaware, or New Jersey. Do any parents consider moving their kids to a jurisdiction that does have classroom learning this year? Or maybe people have a grandparent or a family member in a county that might decide to have in classroom learning. So it should be a very interesting shuffle, but I know for sure that most families that have kids are kind of throwing their hands up in the air right now, trying to figure out what to do. So,
Those parents that are out there that may be needing help. One thing I've seen, and again, one thing that's amazing about this awesome community we live in here in South Baltimore is that whether it's SBNA or FHSNA, any of the Facebook groups that are out there. I've seen a lot of people posting, going back and forth, those that might need some help with nannies or some sort of care for their children, and depending on what their economic status might be, so forth, there's all types of options, and there's a lot of people out there willing to help. So just want to throw a shout out there to make sure you check out some of those groups on Facebook and other social media sites where if you're looking for help, there's a lot of support out there. So you're not on your own, but we're all in the same boat. So try to reach out to some other friends and neighbors if you need some help with that.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the great things about South Baltimore is just a wonderful community, and certainly I think different people are in kind of different demographics of their point in life, whether they have a young family, maybe they're an empty nester, maybe they're a young professional, maybe they're a teenager themselves, but certainly that young family scene around South Baltimore can be very tight knit and very helpful. So certainly an opportunity here for people to lend a hand and help everybody get through this. We'll see how much longer it goes, but certainly at least we know starting in the fall, things will certainly be different than normal.
So Kev, we got some changes here around the city for our dining.
Yeah, so Mayor Jack Young and his health commissioner decided that they were going to shut down restaurant dining rooms again. So that will start Friday at 5 p.m. So certainly a tough blow to the restaurant industry, which has been affected so much by COVID-19. So yeah, hopefully it's good timing, at least with the expanded outdoor seating that we now have in Federal Hill. But certainly be another challenge for local restaurants, and hopefully they can find the fight in them to keep fighting and stay in business. I know we covered 2 restaurant closings on our podcast today, but South Baltimore has 180 plus restaurants, and most of them are still in business, and hopefully that continues. I was in Delaware last week, and they had a model where there was no more bar seating, no more standing around at a restaurant, but they did have it where every other dining room table was able to be open, or some places kind of had like plexiglass covering between booths. So, maybe Baltimore could have looked at a model where you shut down the bar seating and the standing around and keep the dining rooms going, but they went with the full shutting down again of restaurant dining rooms. So certainly a challenge. They specifically mentioned Southeast Baltimore as an area that started having higher positivity rates of COVID-19. You look at state of Maryland, hospitalizations have gone up from in the high 300s to back over 500. So there's been a bit of a rise in hospitalizations around Maryland. Not a huge spike, but it'll be interesting to see how the different areas handle this. As far as I think Baltimore City is the only one to shut down dining rooms again in full. So we'll keep an eye on this. Another unfortunate challenge for our businesses, but just a reminder, you can support these businesses by getting carryout drinks, dining outside, gift cards, T-shirts. So just make sure to keep supporting our local businesses and their employees, because this is obviously a tough time that isn't over yet.
Well, Kev, we got mostly positives happening. People are adjusting to the new realities of everything with COVID and how to do business and how to get back to school and get everything normal as possible. But at least one thing that we got going for us is it looks like some sports are coming back, right? We're going to have some Ravens. Hey, the Orioles start their season today, which is pretty amazing because typically by this time in the year, the Orioles season is already over.
Yeah, absolutely. I kept saying while the pandemic was going on, is the Orioles are still in first place. They were also in last place at the same time. But yeah, I always joke that if we had 10 games, we might be 2-8 at that point. So I guess you can keep some optimism until the season starts. But the season starts tonight. The Orioles will be playing at Fenway Park in Boston with no fans tonight. They're going to be playing a 60-game season in 66 days. So it'll be probably about the same pace as baseball usually goes, but it'll be a quick season. And who knows, when you're 162 games, when you cut 102 games off the schedule with a upstart young team like Baltimore, does that give them a better chance to compete? Probably, because it's if you're not that good, it's tough to hang in for 100 plus games. But who knows, maybe they could catch lightning in a bottle and at least make things exciting. So the Orioles will have home games starting next week. Major League Baseball has announced there's not going to be any fans to start the season, but we'll see if that changes as the season goes on. We've seen some ballparks do some pretty cool things like Los Angeles and Oakland and some other teams where they've made cardboard cutouts of basically fans who have reserved a seat in some of the lower deck seats, which is pretty cool to look at. So we'll see if the Orioles maybe go in that direction at all. And one other interesting thing is you have that Hilton Hotel, which overlooks Camden Yards. So that could be your one way to get a peek at a live Orioles game this year. So I'm sure those hotel rooms with the balconies overlooking Camden Yards will be a hot commodity this year. I plan on trying to reserve one for a game myself. So it'll be an interesting baseball season. And here's a really interesting thing is the Toronto Blue Jays, the only Canadian team in Major League Baseball, was denied permission by the Canadian government to play games at Rogers Centre, their home ballpark. So they are looking for a place to play, which is a little late in the game right now, as the season actually already started last night for a lot of teams. And the Blue Jays are starting with an away string of games, but they need a place to play their home games. And it looks like Camden Yards could be that place, as the Orioles and the Blue Jays have kind of come to an agreement to allow that to happen. I think they would build like a temporary locker room for the Blue Jays so that they're not sharing locker rooms. But this move would just need the approval of the state of Maryland. Governor Hogan has not made an announcement definitively one way or another on that, but that could be kind of interesting, where the Toronto Blue Jays and the Orioles are both playing at Camden Yards this year. And like I mentioned before, you have those Hilton hotel rooms. Maybe we could get some Blue Jays fans coming into town, and obviously the Blue Jays would need to stay in a local hotel somewhere. So it wouldn't be as exciting as if this was normal, where we basically have two baseball teams for the summer, but certainly an interesting storyline where we would have two baseball teams for the summer. There just most likely wouldn't be fans for most of those games. And we'll see if the Canadian government updates their position at all, but very interesting news there.
That is very interesting. We got some football coming back too, right?
Yeah. So, football will come back in the fall, in September. And there's a lot to be negotiated with how the football season looks as far as fans. And if there's any changes to preseason, looks like there likely will be. But what we do know is the Ravens have said if fans are allowed, they're going to cap it at 14,000. And the stadium holds a little bit over 71,000. So that's certainly a big reduction in seating capacity. 14,000 fans would allow them to space people out between the three decks of the stadium. So I guess we will see. That'll depend on the NFL. That'll depend on the state of Maryland to see what decision is made as far as fans attending games. But we do know that the stadium will not be full this year if fans are allowed at all. But, NFL looks like they're definitely moving towards having a normal season. And obviously, the Ravens 14-2 last year got a lot of Baltimoreans really excited. So, everyone's looking for anything to be excited about these days. So hopefully the Ravens will pick up where they left off last year in the regular season and have another good season. And everyone will have to scream from the roof decks and their TVs to get some environment going in South Baltimore.
For sure. Anything going on with southbmore.com that people need to be aware of, the website itself?
Sure. I think that about covers the news of the week. But yeah, certainly if any business is looking to advertise, certainly contact us. We have a lot of great ways to market your business, to market your event, to market your organization, to market a home you might have for sale or for rent. So certainly let us know. We're a great way to reach the South Baltimore audience, and we'd love to team up with you to spread the word about what you're doing. So contact us if you have any interest. We appreciate everybody for logging onto the site. We love all of our new podcast listeners. So we're always excited to be in South Baltimore and cover South Baltimore, and look forward to bringing you more updates every day.
Awesome. Thank you, Kev.
Thank you.
We are out. We'll talk to you soon in a couple of weeks. Take care, everybody. Go O's! You're listening to This Week in South Baltimore, brought to you by southbmore.com.